American planes attack an oil plant in order to stop the spill in the Persian Gulf. As a ground war seems more likely, U.S. troops are warned by their commanders about what they face.
Explosives in the human body don't get along.
And this evening on Focus, pictures from the other side, scenes of Iraq.
This is NBC Nightly News, reported by Garrick Utley.
Good evening. It has been called environmental terrorism, the deliberate oil spill by Iraq in the Persian Gulf, and now bombs have been used to try to stop it. The targets were oil pumping facilities in Kuwait today, the goal to cut the flow of oil before any more of it reaches the waters of the Gulf. In Saudi Arabia, here's correspondent George Lewis.
Do two things.
General Norman Schwarzkopf, commander of Operation Desert Storm, announced the bombing raids, which he described as a carefully planned operation designed to minimize damage.
That became a major interest of ours because, of course, we are not in the business of destroying Kuwait while we are liberating Kuwait.
He showed video of the burning offshore loading facility where the Iraqis began dumping the oil. The fire was a result of a battle between American planes and an Iraqi boat. Schwarzkopf said the flames were actually beneficial, helping consume the spilled oil. Last night, U.S. Air Force planes used smart bombs to destroy the complex of pipes pumping the oil out to sea. Schwarzkopf said the strike didn't cut off the oil completely, but reduced the flow dramatically.
And you can see the size of the flame area is much, much smaller than the one you saw just a few minutes ago.
Oil continues to wash ashore on the Saudi coastline just south of the Kuwaiti border. It's unclear whether this oil is part of the main spill or from a Saudi refinery that was attacked by Iraq. What is clear is that this country and other Gulf states must now cope with a huge environmental disaster.
The military tells us that the oil poses no threat to their operations, so that the remaining danger is primarily towards the natural resources of the region.
One concern is the drinking water supply. Half of it in eastern Saudi Arabia comes from desalination plants on the Gulf. The water is still drinkable, but Saudi officials say if it gets polluted, they'll have to switch over to well water. The Saudis have hired this Norwegian-owned ship to help clean up the mess. It will place containment booms at the front of the slick and then begin vacuuming the oil out of the sea. But the captain admits the job is too big for one ship.
Officials say it will take 3 to 5 years for nature to flush the oil out of the Gulf. A task force has been dispatched by the White House to consult with the Saudis on the cleanup. They'll arrive tomorrow morning in Riyadh, the capital. Garrick?
George Lewis in Saudi Arabia, thank you. And the air war continued full intensity today, and 2 American F-15 shot down 4 Iraqi MiG jets near Baghdad. No Allied planes have been lost in the past 48 hours. And there is a new mystery this evening, a mystery in the air war. More Iraqi planes have flown across the border to neighboring Iran, 23 more planes in the past 24 hours. We want to talk about that now with Fred Francis, our defense correspondent at the Pentagon. Fred, what does the military there think is happening with these planes?
Well, Garrick, military leaders tell NBC News tonight that Iraq may have been preparing a backdoor attack against the U.S. fleet in the Persian Gulf with Iran's complicity. The sources say the evidence gathered from U.S. radar surveillance planes and other means is only circumstantial, but it is mounting. That Iran agreed to look the other way while the most capable warplanes in the Iraqi Air Force used Iranian airfields. Some of the Iraqi warplanes which began flying to Iran earlier this week are F-1 Mirage jets, the best Saddam has. The F-1 Mirage is the plane that launches Exocet anti-ship missiles. An Iraqi warplane with 2 Exocet missiles killed 37 sailors on board the USS Stark in 1987. It was allegedly an accident. The sources say along with the Mirage jets in Iran is the surviving Iraqi AWACS plane, capable of giving radar directions to a large number of attacking Mirage jets. Last week, U.S. warships in the Persian Gulf were the intended targets of 3 Exocet-carrying Mirage jets, but that attack was thwarted when a Saudi F-15 shot down 2 of the planes. But an air attack with Exocets coming out of Iran could have caught U.S. forces looking the other way. No longer.
We would be absolutely not worth our salt as military people if we ignored the fact that those planes could fly back out of Iran after us, and therefore we obviously have contingencies that will take care of that situation if it were to occur.
Garrick, the State Department says it accepts Iran's assurances that those 40 to 50 Iraqi warplanes will be sequestered for the remainder of the war, but military commanders don't trust the diplomatic assertions. Garrick?
Oh, right, Fred. Is there the theory, the possibility, what we're seeing in Iran is some kind of factional infighting? The government says one thing, but perhaps more militant factions are saying we're giving the green light to the Iraqis to come in here?
That's one theory that's been floated around Washington the last 48 hours. Another one, and perhaps which has more credence, is that at the start of this war, when Iraq made peace with Iran, they made some sort of deal to use Iranian airfields. You'll remember that Iraq gave back to Iran a lot of the Shatt al-Arab waterway, which it captured in that 8-year war. So there may have been a deal in the works for 6 months.
And this Iraqi maneuver, sending the planes to Iran, is that perhaps a sign that the air war against Iraq is having some impact and effect?
Well, I will tell you, it takes away 50 of Iraq's finest warplanes, and that's a big boost to the United States, and it could be a turning point in the air war and less of a threat to U.S. forces should they go on the attack.
Fred Francis, the Pentagon, thank you. On NBC's Meet the Press program today, Defense Secretary Dick Cheney said American ground forces in Saudi Arabia will be ready to fight before the end of February. He did not give a precise date, however, but it is one more sign which way this war appears to be headed now. Our correspondent Mike Betcher describes what the ground forces in Saudi Arabia could face if they too go to war, and we want to alert you that some of these descriptions are graphic.
It's got minds like this, the PMN.
Pay attention to Major George Ketchel. His Marines did.
3 to 5 pounds of pressure blows your foot off. It's a very effective mine. That much, your foot's missing. This is to take it all the way off back to the knee. He buries these in, you can't see him.
Iraq has buried an estimated 500,000 mines along the front line since August. Major Ketchel wanted his men to know what they might be facing.
Some people win the lotto. You find one of these, you're going to win it. You're going to eat about 14 pounds of explosives. They're not going to find your shoes. They're not going to find nothing. See a little red mist there. That's a problem. Once again, you can identify it, mark it, avoid it. This ain't the war to be out there playing Rambo.
Our artillery, like he said, in our air is going to do a lot to their defensive position before we move in. So I'm pretty confident. I mean, you know, if you die, you die, but I'm believing to stay alive as long as I can.
Preserving American lives is why the air war has continued this long and will go on longer before a ground assault begins. Their commanding general in another war watched Marines die in his arms. General Walter Boomer knows what combat did to him and will do to his Marines.
They, more so than anyone, will realize that life really does hang by a thread, and it's a very thin thread in combat. And when it's all over and they're okay, they'll say, you know, it's really good to be alive, and I think I'll approach things maybe a little bit differently.
On the front line, during a cold desert winter, a blanket, a weapon, and the lessons of his training are 3 things which a soldier keeps at hand. Survival is his ultimate aim.
Just waiting. That's all we do. Soon our turn will come.
Mike Betcher, NBC News, Saudi Arabia.
And there were these new threats today from Iraq. Official Iraqi newspapers warned of lightning strikes, that's the quote, against the Allied forces, and hinted that chemical and biological weapons might be used. One report said the coming days would bring what it called dramatic developments. Also, Iraq's Foreign Minister Tariq Aziz is back in the news. Today, he blamed the United Nations and blamed UN Secretary General Perez de Cuellar personally for what Aziz called, quote, odious crimes against Iraq. Aziz said Allied forces are targeting civilian, religious, and humanitarian sites, but General Norman Schwarzkopf said today that Allied pilots are taking extraordinary measures to avoid civilian targets. Steps, he said, are actually putting the pilots at even greater risk. As we cover the news this day in the war, we'll go next to Israel. Our correspondent Keith Miller will take us to an Israeli high school as students go back to class, trying to lead normal lives, even under the threat of the Scud missiles. In Israel today, the government met to discuss whether or when to retaliate for the Iraqi missile attacks. Defense Minister Moshe Aarons was quoted as saying Iraq has already gone over the line. After the meeting, however, it was said that there is no change in Prime Minister Shamir's policy of restraint. Well, as you can well imagine, life has been anything but normal in Israel since the start of the war and the Iraqi Scud missile attacks. Today, however, for the first time, some Israeli school children, teenagers, went back to their classes. Keith Miller was with them.
Well, I've been going crazy at the house because we can't leave the home, and especially I talk a lot on the phone, and then they ask to cut down on phone calls. I don't want to study, but it will be exciting if I change.
Karen and Sarit Caspi are among the 200,000 high school students going back to class. Their mother, Galia, is going too. She's a teacher. This is the first attempt to open schools since the missile attacks began 10 days ago. The first lesson today is how to survive a gas attack. No student is allowed to attend class without a mask.
We're young. We were born after the wars of Israel began, so it's our first time. And it's scary when every night we have to go into sealed room and then hear bombs over our heads.
Keeping students interested in English grammar is easier when Galia spells out the concerns of her students.
We wish that Hussein were dead. We can't just sit home and let him dictate our lives to us. So we are here, and we hope that everything will be okay.
While Galia hopes and teaches, across town, Zubin Mehta and the Israel Philharmonic hope and play, defiantly filling a recording date under skies that threaten to rain scuds. Eitan Gurland was buried today. He is the fourth Israeli to die during the missile attacks on civilian targets. More than 200 people have been injured. The Israel Philharmonic recorded an American tune today that seemed to fit the mood at the Patriot missile batteries. New York Senator Alphonse D'Amato visited a victorious Patriot crew.
This is the lieutenant who pressed the button successfully last night and brought us down.
The launchers from that defense stood empty today. The Patriots for the next round are pointed toward an empty but ominous sky. Keith Miller, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
Israel today. Next, scenes from the other side, Iraq, as we continue. On Focus this evening, pictures from the other side. Pictures of Iraq under the bombs, scenes that have now reached Jordan. During the past several days, Iraqi television has broadcast videotape which it claims proves that the Allies are hitting civilian targets. As we noted earlier in the broadcast, General Schwarzkopf said today that Allied pilots are trying to ensure that does not happen, although he and other American officials acknowledge that civilian targets may sometimes be hit. Dennis Murphy joins us now from Amman, Jordan, to talk about the difficulty in getting pictures and the information that puts them into context and to describe some new pictures from Iraq. Dennis?
Garrick, people leaving Iraq come to Amman with uncensored stories about what they've seen. Tonight we have some still pictures to show you that were taken in and around Baghdad a week after the first air raid. This little boy is walking through rubble in a downtown district of Baghdad very near the expensive hotels and embassies. The Agadir Hotel, seen here, fronts on the busiest street in the capital. The doorway has been damaged by some sort of bomb. The freelance photographer who took these pictures says this is a residential neighborhood very near the U.S. Embassy. Shops in a commercial district are destroyed. This shattered doorway led to a school where Iraqi officials say 15 children were injured. This car in a street filled with debris was parked near the U.S. Embassy. The pictures show us fragments of a city under siege, but it is still difficult to get an overall view of what has happened to Iraq since the bombs started falling. The Iraqi government is hand-delivering to Jordanian television tapes like these, videos that show damaged buildings, apparently residential neighborhoods. The note on the tape box said it shows the town of Kirkuk in northern Iraq, but there's not a reporter or cameraman to vouch for their authenticity. The same tape shows a makeshift morgue with the bodies of perhaps a dozen men, women, and children. Again, there's no way to say when and where it was taken. And that's the problem. The pictures and censored information getting out of Iraq is scant. One of the first targets hit was Baghdad's communication tower, their satellite link to the world. Presumably, the U.S. and the coalition does not want Iraq to be able to transmit pictures of dead and injured civilians. But the few pictures we do trust show us that not all the bombs falling are as smart and surgically precise as the Pentagon would like. Garrick?
Well, Dennis, the photographer who took those still pictures we saw in your report, how was he able to work in Iraq?
Well, with great difficulty. He's a Middle Eastern man. He was able to range about 10 miles out from the city center, but always with a government man in tow, the kind of person that we call the minder. Notice that all of the pictures you saw were of civilian damage, no military targets there, because the story that the Iraqis want to get out is that civilians are in the way and being hurt in the bombardments.
Well, to follow up on that point, are we going to see more pictures coming out of Iraq and perhaps some more solid information?
Well, my guess on the first point is, yes, we're going to see more pictures. After all, they've been using pictures since the first days of this. We all remember the notorious hostage guest videos from last summer. The Iraqis have figured how to get videotapes from Baghdad here to Amman, Jordan. Now, whether we're going to be able to identify what we've seen, take it to the judge and jury and call it evidence, I don't think so. And not until we get some Western reporters and photographers in there to vouch for it. I think we're just going to have to call it something like propaganda. Garrick?
That's a pretty good name for it. Dennis Murphy and Amman Jordan, thank you. And we'll have more news as we continue in just a moment. And now domestic news of the day, and a problem for many people in California, water or lack of it. The state is in its 5th year of a serious drought, and this coming week state officials are expected to impose emergency rationing measures. In Los Angeles, here's correspondent Bill Agatuda.
California reservoirs are tapped down to half their capacity, and there is no significant rain in the forecast. So, as early as this week, families could be ordered to cut their usage as much as a third. And farmers who use up 85% of the state's water may soon be given only enough to keep their permanent crops alive, meaning less of an abundance at the supermarkets here and across the country.
But as of now, we are going to expect some higher prices because of this. There's just no way around it.
In the big cities like Los Angeles, water rationing is voluntary and largely ignored. So, among the rules being considered, limiting families to 300 gallons a day. The average 10-minute shower uses 40 gallons. A desperate move to make Californians conserve.
When the tap doesn't deliver, people are going to change their ways.
Gone are the days when the state simply built more dams to hold water. Environmentalists oppose that. Even the sprawling suburbs for which California is famous may no longer rise overnight to accommodate newcomers. Already, some local governments have begun to deny building permits, afraid there may soon be too many homes and not enough water.
There is always the possibility of a big storm or two before the winter season ends, but it's not in the long-range forecast. So, Garrick, in addition to the mandatory water rationing, which now seems inevitable, the best officials here can do is to pray for rain.
Bill Agatuda in Los Angeles, thank you. And we'll have our final report in just a moment. Well, this is, after all, Super Bowl Sunday, and it's happening right now, in case you didn't notice or don't care. In either case, the game is a big event, and this year it was a big potential target for terrorists. And that is why extraordinary precautions have been taken to prevent that. Bob Hager is at the stadium in Tampa. Bob?
Garrick, Super Bowl XXV was underway, but only after the most massive security ever imposed on a crowd entering an American athletic event. The gates opened 3 hours and 15 minutes before kickoff, and from there on, for the 72,000 fans, it was wait and be searched, and wait and be searched again.
Portable radios and TVs, cameras, camcorders, bottles, containers, fireworks, air horns, umbrellas, musical and noise-making instruments of any kind are prohibited inside the stadium.
First, there was a bag check, that at an outer fence 30 yards from the stadium. Later, at the stadium entrance, came body searches.
Can you lift up your right leg? They're doing your feet.
They take your name if the thing buzzes?
My God, they're doing your feet?
I have change in my pocket. Will that do anything?
Press equipment was examined once and then x-rayed. A military helicopter hovered overhead. Police and FBI SWAT teams stood wait. But it was the body searches that took time. The lines wrapped almost completely around the stadium and sometimes required an hour or more. But the fans took it all in an understanding good humor.
I didn't think it was all that bad for the safety's sake.
I felt safer with that going on. I didn't mind a bit.
Small inconvenience.
You feel safe?
Absolutely. The only arrests were for the usual ticket scalping, and there were plenty of those. It appears all that extraordinary security was worthwhile. And 72,000 fans in there and other Americans around the country were getting a few hours diversion from the war in the Gulf. Garrick?
Bob Hager at Tampa, thank you. Well, Football has often been described as the closest thing to sports in this country, to actual warfare. Two armies in the field, after all, with their frontal assaults and from time to time their flanking maneuvers. Even the words are often the same. We hear about the blitz and the bomb thrown by a quarterback, and yet in this evening's Super Bowl in Tampa, it's particularly hard to use those terms anymore. Those watching it are seeing it in a different light now that we have seen the real blitz and the real bombs and the real scuds. Football, after all, is only a game. Not so what has happened in the Gulf. And next on most of these stations, we'll bring you an NBC News special report on the war, America, the realities of war. Faith Daniels will be reporting from New York, and Arthur Kent from Saudi Arabia. Faith?
Garrick, now that we're 11 days into this war, it's time to take stock now that the realization is sinking in.
We'll look at the man, the fight, the fear, and the press on two fronts, here on the war front and there at home. Garrick?
Arthur and Faith will all stay tuned. And of course, NBC News will continue to bring you the latest developments from the Persian Gulf as warranted, with full reports tomorrow on Sunrise and the Today program. And Tom Brokaw will be reporting here tomorrow night. I'm Garrick Utley. Good night for NBC News.